well, let's start today the way we always do before we tested the things we think,
say, and do. First is the truth. Second is the fair to all concerned. Third will build goodwill and better friendships. Fourth will be beneficial to all concerned.
Now we're going to have, so we had an interesting song last week. Today we're going to have two songs. So we're going to sing whatever Marshall tells us to sing here in a little bit. But before that, we have a happy birthday to Robin. So we don't always do that, but
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Robin. Happy birthday to you.
All right, and for our second song, it's a tune you all probably heard a little bit this week, and particularly on Saturday. Words are going to be our American words. My country, 'tis of thee.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where our fathers died, land of the pilgrims ride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
thank you. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ken Horst will have our prayer today.
Let's pray together. God, it's a great day to be alive, and we thank you for life. Thank you for Rotary and the joy that it is to sit around the tables, to share the things of living and of our experiences. Thank you for all the potential that there is for us to work with Rotary and help this wonderful city. Give us creativity, give us imagination, give us a desire to make this a better city that we live in than it is now. Thank you that we can team together with other Rotary clubs in this city and be beneficial to others around us. Thank you for the food we have eaten, and we pray for those that are going to share in this time together. May we all be better informed as we go from this time of meeting at Rotary. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So I do not have any family of Rotary announcements other than happy birthday to Robin.
I got one. 2 days, Bill Lee, who's here, is going to have a birthday.
Who was our greeter today?
Me.
There. Do you have any other visitors?
Just our speakers.
Just our speakers. Okay, we're going to get to know them here in just a little bit. All right. Hey.
There was just a few of us Rotarians at the National Day of Prayer last week in the morning, and 200 people in the room. It was really interesting to see some of these young students from JMU get up and talk about. The lady from Ukraine had a powerful prayer and hope for the world. And when you hear so much negative stuff around about our schools and our teachers teaching bad stuff and how bad the schools are, I just walked over to a table of about 8 students there from JMU, all in their early 20s, and I said, "This is my first time at a National Day of Prayer, and I'm so glad I got invited. What brought you here?" And the one girl just popped up and said, "Whenever we hear anything about Jesus, prayer, Bible study, or whatever, we go to it. And we bring as many people as we can." And I sat and talked with them for about 15 minutes. That just gave me a whole new joy for life.
Good. Well, I missed that. I needed some of that. We had the Ram Clinic, and there was a couple folks. And then Noah was there, and John Rosenberger, and John. So I think we're going to get, once that'll get closed out, we'll get a little bit more information. I think, Noah, you said they were pretty much booked. So 75 dental appointments a day and 150 medical and vision on top of that.
I don't have the exact numbers yet,
Yeah.
but a lot of people were served. It was a really great event.
Yeah, and so that is a great thing. That, again, that is not put on obviously by us, but we did have some volunteers there, and so we'll share more about that once we get the final numbers for that. Anything else? All right. So I think that we're going to get on with our program. So I'm going to thank Shannon. Shannon got a jump start on this. He helped. Oops.
You want to remind people next week is the Ethics Awards?
Yes. So
Next
next week of ethics, and I guess then the following week is at the Festival Center, and I believe that all the tables have been spoken for. And so if you are a table host, show up a little bit early and make sure that you get a chance to meet your families there. And then we have scholarships then here the week after that. And so Shannon has put the program together today. You know, we've been talking about a lot with the United Way and with the Chamber of Commerce, the things that are important to our community, and childcare is one of those things. And so today we are very pleased to have a panel of childcare folks, and Shannon's going to moderate that panel. And so I will just welcome them all forward, and then they can introduce themselves kind of once they're up here. All right.
Good afternoon. I'm extremely pleased to have the opportunity to moderate this panel today, because I do believe that child care is an extremely important issue in our community, probably more than some of us in this room realize. There's been a lot of talk here lately related to Marvel movies and having superhero fatigue. Well, it's my pleasure to present 3 fatigued superheroes to you. The reality is that child care may be one of these segments of our society that if it shuts down, it really does cripple our economy. So the work that these ladies do in their organizations is extremely vital to the interests of our community, and I'm very grateful to have them here today. So I consider them all colleagues and people that I have the greatest respect for. I would be grateful if you'd introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about your organization.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Dolores Jameson, and I'm the Executive Director at the Harrisonburg Rockingham Child Daycare Center. Not a long enough name. And I appreciate being here. Thank you for having us. I do recognize several faces in the room. You want me to tell them about the daycare? Our daycare has been in operation for the past 52 years, and we offer child care to children ages 2 through 5 during the school year, and then a group of school agers during the summer months only.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Rouse, and I'm the Executive Director at Roberta Webb Early Education Center. And we serve children that are 3 and 4 years old. Prior to COVID, we had an infant room, a 2-year-old room. After COVID, no more. If you find some of the staff like just hanging out on the corner, tell them to come back to work. And we can serve some more kids. Right now, I think always, Roberta Webb has existed for 27 years, and we have some of the most vulnerable families in our community, and their children are with us. And I say that because it's not sort of feel bad for us, but there is a group of children that have more trauma than even I as a 61-year-old have ever gone through in my life. And these children need to be ready for school. So we do our best to make sure that they are socially and emotionally ready for school.
Good afternoon, my name is Christina Seke, and I'm the Executive Director of Second Home Learning Center. And I especially appreciate being invited here today since we are a school-age childcare center, serving children kindergarten through 7th grade. Open at 6 o'clock in the morning for those parents who need to get to work early, and children go off to school from us, and then come back after school, and we close at 6 p.m. Apart from keeping the children safe, we focus on academics, academic enrichment. One of our specialties, I should say by now, is a performing arts program where children who are interested and whose parents are able to commit to all the rehearsals prepare a musical in the spring, which actually, the performances are coming up on the 18th through the 21st. If you would like to come and see what Harrisonburg children are capable of doing, we will be out at Back Home on the Farm, and our production is Annie Jr. this year. It's a fantastic play. So, as I met, we are licensed for 100 children, and have about 89 on the roster at the moment. We take the children who graduate from Dolores' program and from Angie's program, and often those children need even more support with their social, emotional skills. So apart from the academic enrichment, we also provide social, emotional skills, learning opportunities for these children. Thank you.
Actually, I'll have you hold on to the microphone. Angela already alluded to this, but it's always an important question because we are kind of hopefully a post-COVID world. But how has the pandemic impacted the work that you do? What sort of impacts did it have on you during the pandemic? And then what things have changed are going to probably continue to be after the pandemic, if that makes any sense.
So, Second Home was closed for 1 month, starting March 15th of 2020. And it took us that long to get the permissions to reopen for a very limited number of children whose parents were considered essential workers. From being open from before and after school, we opened up all day long. We were open for 12 hours for those children whose parents work at the poultry industry and at healthcare, especially. Once schools reopened virtually, we had 60 children at Second Home from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. until the children were able to go to school. We actually were able to support some of the children who were from the county as well and needed help, and we picked up a few children from schools that we don't usually support. So 60 children were spread out in the gym at tables set up 6 feet apart, wearing masks, doing their virtual learning. Each school and each teacher had different ways of logging on and accessing work. It was an absolute nightmare, but we were so proud to be able to pull this off. And we felt so privileged, really, to be able to help these students and families who did not have the choice of staying home and doing school from home. Because their parents had to work. So that's what we did during COVID. And since COVID, we have been struggling with staffing because of the nature of our program of being open in the morning and in the afternoon. We can't really hire full-time employees. And so we do have a good number of very talented and very enthusiastic JMU students as staff members. But they come and go. And just this week, we are losing 3 of them. So, staffing has definitely been difficult, much more difficult to find those people who are willing to come and actually stay with us. And of course, the children's difficulties and the children's trauma responses are not helping with keeping staff members at second home. We have a saying at second home that no one comes here to second home for the money. Everyone comes for something, but it's not money. It's because our people are dedicated to help either the students or their families, and it is a really special feeling to know that all these people who are coming to us are there for a reason other than real money. Obviously, we pay them, but not enough. So, yes.
And Angela, before you respond, I also want to point out that Angela's organization was extremely instrumental during the pandemic, opening up a learning pod that my wife is affiliated with. But the good folks at Roberta Webb made it possible for how many students did we end up with?
There were, I think, 22.
So it was the first place to open up, and actually provided prioritized students from the Harrisonburg City Schools an opportunity to be able to get the parents back to work. And so I appreciate your involvement in that. That was a big ask and a big lift on your part. But talk a little bit about the pandemic and how it's impacted you.
So I'm going to say this as I put my arm on my fellow colleague here. What COVID taught us is that we understand how privileged we're not. And so even though it has been a work in progress of feeling good about what we do, I learned very quickly that when you have a teacher who cannot meet her own needs, to put her in a classroom and ask her to meet needs of children is trauma helping trauma, and that equals nothing but trauma. So COVID taught us that as we diminished in number, we actually were a little more productive in being able to keep the numbers small so that we could increase the wages of our staff and they could take better care of a smaller number of children. So I too lost 5 staff members due to COVID, but I drew a line in the sand and said to my board, then we won't go any further until we have more bricks and mortar. Like, there comes a time when you just have to say stop the madness so that we can really be productive. And as the state of Virginia would say, they were just looking for quality. We need quality, and that seemed like such a fluid word, and nobody could put their finger on what quality was. But as I look around the room at people's shoes, I see quality shoes. So if I can find quality shoes, I can easily find a quality center and quality people to be in charge of our littles, who will be us, sitting and doing the things that we do in our community. So I think it's really important that we kind of get rid of a little bit of the fluff and feel good and literally put the rubber to the road and say, in order for us to do the things that we need to do, we need money to do it. And I'll tell you a really funny story. I saved up $325 when my son lived in Texas, and he took me to this huge mall. Like, our mall is a dollar store compared to the malls in Texas. And I said, I want a quality bag. I want one of the best Michael Kors bags there are. So I walked into this store with my $325, and this guy walks up to me and said, how can I help you? And I said, I want a bag. I got 3 1/4. And he said, I'll show you to the wallets. Oh. That was a quality bag. Even what I had put away, I thought I was doing something really good. So it takes money to do the things that we do if we want our outcomes to be quality. So anyway, that's what I learned from COVID.
Laura, same question to you.
Okay. And kudos to Christina and Angela for doing the learning pods. I helped one child do online learning, and hated every last second of it. So kudos to you all. I was thankful I had one kid to deal with, and I just stood there and felt for those teachers. So what our program did learn from COVID, I feel blessed that we were able to take what we learned. We kept the good stuff from it. So kind of stepping off of what Angela said about quality, prior to COVID, we had 6 total rooms, but so for 3 of the rooms, you could put 13 kids in a classroom, but then you had to have 2 teachers in each room. And of course, when COVID hit, I think we lost about half our staff. So the staff that did stay working, instead of going back to those 13 children, we dropped the classroom sizes to 1 teacher with 9 kids. And we got rid of our part-time childcare and only did 5 days a week. And we have realized our quality has gone up tremendously. The teachers are happier, the children are happier, the kids know each other, there's more consistency across the board. You don't have 2 teachers in a classroom trying to work together and not always getting along. So yes, it may look like my enrollment is lower, but it's better quality enrollment. So we've taken the good pieces from COVID and just kind of kept going forward with them and just feel like we're doing a better job all around, taking care of our staff and the children that we have.
So Dolores, I'm going to keep you going, heading back the other way. Angela brought up the big issue, which is the almighty dollar and not having enough of them. Where do you get your funding currently, and what sort of things impact your funding?
Our current funding, we get funding from United Way. We get funding, we're a part of the mixed delivery program. I don't know if you all have heard about that. We're a part of that. Some of our families, the parents pay tuition. We have some children on social services. So we have funding that comes in several different ways to our program.
So, I forgot to be here. Yeah, we are all, well, we both are partners with Harrisburg City Schools, so we have VPI money. Last year we had Head Start money, early Head Start money, mixed delivery, which is a grant source through the state of Virginia VECF. And so they partnered with James Madison. James Madison holds the money and we do the deliverables and they give us money. United Way. And so at one point, all of these federal, local, and state entities that supported us, we could braid and blend funds and use them how we needed. But there's been a nice separation where we're not able to do that as nicely so that children and families are supported. And so next year we're really trying to be creative how we're able to do it, because now that we've given increases to our staff. So when I first came on board 4 years ago, the highest paid person there was the director who left before me, and I think she made $14 an hour. And then the next employee was $10.50. And so when I came on, the first thing I said was, oh, no, I'm not doing that for that. we're going to have to do a little better than that. And they did. And now our highest paid person is $22 an hour. And everyone who comes in, which we consider a virgin, that we're walking them around, they make $15.99. And I think that when we stop and pause and say, how can we ensure these things, we need the community support. Because all of the grant funding that is here today could be gone tomorrow. People just find other things to do with money. And so I consider it very soft money, even though we have 32 children and only one family is paying out of pocket. Everyone else is totally free. But every day we say that, we're like, but. So in my mind, if our community could come together and house either through United Way or some other entity, JMU, and have a pot of money that we know, because the community is there for us, that's harder money than the state money that we have no actual tangible hold on. And some of the deliverables that this funding asks of us makes our job so much harder, and our staff. And so it's not that although I do wear my cape, I love being a superhero. Although we do that every single day, changing light bulbs, unclogging toilets, doing all the things, it would just be nice to be able to say, we have 32 students, we know this is what it takes, and we know that money is there for us. So that our families can just sort of rest. I think right now, because it's soft money, some of our parents actually think at some point somebody's gonna ask me for some of this back, or it's gonna go away and I'm not prepared. So I just sit here today saying, whenever you're speaking with somebody or somebody's saying, I don't know what to do with what I might have as far as funding or monetary money, think of childcare, because we often are just sitting amongst ourselves, not even in a group like this, but just ourselves, saying how creative can we be to keep, squeezing that orange to get orange juice, and it gets tighter and tighter.
So yes, Second Home also has some smaller grants. We get some funding from United Way, some money from Harrisonburg City Public Schools, and also from Harrisonburg City. These three grants total do not make up 1/4 of our budget. Our families pay 1/3 of the real cost of childcare as their fees. Those families who are able to pay, 75% of our students come from low to very low income families, and we only have about 5 or 6 students who come from higher income families, and those families tend to donate some extra, which will then help us provide additional scholarships for those families who are not able to pay at all. However, fundraising takes a huge amount of work, and there is even less funding for school-age childcare than for preschool-age childcare. If you listen to the news or even local events, I so appreciate childcare being one of the highest important topics nowadays. But if you really listen carefully, you will hear that everyone is talking about early childhood education, which is up to age 5. So children are not really safe and are not really able to do their work without help up to about age, what would you say, 14, 15, 16. So what happens to those children? Especially if you consider elementary schools right now in Harrisonburg, they open at 9, 10 in the morning. And we have parents who work from 5 a.m. We have teachers who have to be in school before 9, 10. A lot of people who work don't start their shift at 9 a.m. So what happens to those children? They are not safe at home to put themselves on the school by themselves, right? And they are also not safe to be at home after school. Those children who are home alone, who go home to empty houses because their parents are working, are prime prey for predators, right? And so we have to keep our children safe. But as Angie and Dolores pointed out, it costs money. And I have been working on grants, and I can tell you there are hardly any grants that I can find to apply for school-age childcare, unless we try to go into some very special areas where then the requirements are so high that we can't really take care of the children and keep them safe, because we have to create all these specialized programs to be able to get some kind of money towards the childcare. So I do very much appreciate you inviting me here today, because I really feel like that it is super important to have the quality childcare and educational childcare for the younger age group. And it's just as important to provide the care for our school-age children. Thank you.
So we're running a little tight on time. I'd like to ask just each of you a question, if you could just respond briefly, and then we'll leave some time for the audience to give some questions. But Angela, I'm going to start with you. I heard the phrase early childhood education brought up, and I know that you just changed your nomenclature that you refer to your agency from a child care agency to a early childhood education agency. So can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we in early education have been fighting for years is that we are just babysitters. Yeah. And so we are not. And so when you say child care, I think that's the first thing that people think of. And although we learn through play, we have vetted curriculums that we use. Our teachers have to have a certain amount of hours of education and PD all year long. And I really just wanted to shake it up a bit. And it started with just shaking my board up a bit because they were just so quick to say, oh, childcare. I'm like, no, we're not downstairs playing patty cake. Like this is real. And most people, when you say Mr. or Ms., that title means something. And so I thought we need a name change. And so it took 2 years to convince 9 people on my board that this is what is important and this is what we are doing. And so we can't, again, ask for quality or have children ready for school unless we know that we are truly educating them. So that's where our name change came from. Thank you.
So Dolores, I'm going to ask you a hard question. I've heard people say that Harrisonburg is a child care desert. There's been a lot of discussion about the number of slots that we need as a community and why we don't have them. Could you speak to that as to why we have a shortage in this community?
I don't know if I know why there is a shortage. I would just say, well, I don't know why there's a shortage. There's just not enough childcare centers and programs with spaces to house all the children that we have in the community.
Briefly, can you talk about the licensure and the process that you have to go through?
Well, that's probably why. The steps that you have to go through to be a licensed child care center, there's a notebook we all get with I don't know how many standards in it of things you have to follow and do. And just to hire a teacher to work in a child care center, they need to get fingerprinted, background check, a TB screening, they have to be CPR, first aid certified, and then there's like 5 or 6 other documents that have to be filled out, signed, and for everything done before they are allowed to even step foot inside your program to work with children.
So it's harder to hire a child care provider than probably any other job.
Yes, and you pay a minimum wage.
Okay, Christine, I got one more question for you, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So if you could change anything other than the size of your budget, what sort of policy changes would you make to try to support child care and education of children in our community?
Well, first of all, I'd like to revert back to licensing. I would like to change licensing for school-age children or school-age programs to better reflect the needs of school-age children, because we have to operate under the same licensing standards as Dolores and Angie do, and those are geared towards diapering. I mean, not just, but a lot of it, right? We still have to go through all that training when it doesn't apply to our program. Obviously, Harrisonburg can't change that because it is dictated by now the Department of Education. I think that one of the policies possibly would be to provide better support to these programs, financial support, so we don't have to try to work so hard for such little money to actually run our programs. We can do a much better job when we can actually focus on serving our children and working with our children. And all of us work with a lot of very low-income families. If you think about Harrisonburg as a city, We have a sizable low-income population here, working in very unforgiving workplaces. And so if we can provide more of them or get more of the money, then we don't have to put such a so much on our families, right? And so they can actually go and work and earn money to support their families, and we can also possibly hire more people to open up more centers for school-age children to that serve this population that we serve. There are only 2 places in Harrisonburg. Second Home Learning Center is one, and then Boys and Girls Club is the other. No other school-age centers actually serve such low-income families because they just can't afford to.
Thank you. We're a little tight on time. We got started late today, but I wanted to leave enough time for a couple questions from the audience. If you have a question, please try to direct it to a specific speaker, or if you guys want to jump in, if it's somebody's in your wheelhouse, jump right in and answer the question. Okay, that's a group that's going to get out the door, so.
And just because we have such a wonderful group of people here, I would like to put in a word about our needs right now, apart from funding, because that is an ongoing need. But actually our board needs a treasurer. So if you are interested in becoming our treasurer, or if you happen to know someone who would be a good fit and would like to be Second Home Learning Center's treasurer, please tell them about us because our treasurer is finishing up his term, I believe, at the end of this month, and we haven't found anyone yet. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the panel for your time today. We greatly appreciate you, and again, all the work that you continue to do for our community. Thank you very much.
I will add my thank you for being here today and for the work that you do every day. It's important work, and we are adjourned.